and welcome to this special edition of Parenting on the Go. I'm your host, Sheena Monnin, and joining me today is Detroit Red Wings play-by-play broadcaster, Ken Daniels. Ken is here today to save lives. Ken, I really appreciate your time stopping by the studio today.
Thank you, Sheena. My pleasure.
I've already learned some interesting information that I'm excited to share with all of our viewers about the opioid crisis. Apparently, unbeknownst to a lot of us, it's not over. It's actually amped up. Would you mind telling us a little bit about your son's battle with that?
Well, for us, we believe it started in his freshman year at Michigan State because the kid who started him on opioids called me after he passed away to tell me that he did. And unfortunately, you know, people have to know that addicts don't want to be addicts. There's a chemical receptor in your brain that makes you susceptible to those who take pills. And unfortunately for Jamie, it caught him, and you can become an addict 3 to 5 days after taking an opioid, and that's what they did in college, and your peers and peer pressure. And some don't, some do, and that's why abstinence is the only way to go. And unfortunately for Jamie, he couldn't stop.
Oh, wow. So there's no way to predict how someone's going to respond then?
No, you know, and I often say, Sheena, it's nature versus nurture. You can have two kids in the same family and brought up the exact same way, but then nature takes over, and again, those chemical receptors in your brain, everybody's wired differently. And for my son, unfortunately, it kept telling him, I need more. He wanted to stop. He asked to go to rehab. He didn't want to be that way, but unfortunately for him, he couldn't.
Yeah, that sounds very powerful, what happens in the mind. Tell us a little bit, just segueing into some of the issues that might be there. Tell us about the Florida Shuffle.
Well, Jamie asked to get help and go to rehab, and he was seeing a doctor here and a therapist, which is the first thing to do if you notice any signs at home. Get to a doctor, get to a therapist. If there's you think there might be depression, it's a mental illness. The opioid, the addiction, is a mental illness. So whatever signs you see, try to get help. Jamie wanted to go to rehab. We sent him to Florida. Because of peer pressure here, he didn't want people to know around here. And
that's understandable.
Yeah, and we gave in to those wishes, and that's okay. In hindsight, others will say, well, maybe there's an intervention and everyone needs to know. And maybe everyone handles it differently. I'm not saying there's a right way or a wrong way. However, he went to Florida, and what the Florida Shuffle is in a nutshell is you can follow the money. Because once he was in a 30-day in-treatment program, then you're required to go live outside that on your own, get a job, pay for rent, so you're with your peers and stay clean in a sober home. He wasn't a sober home until he got what was patient brokered, where kids will find those who have good insurance, offer them to come live in a home where rent is basically free, or there's other enticements. When you go to that home that is anything but sober, at least they're starting to clean it up in Florida, but it's gone to many other states now, they then, once you're in that home, they basically want you to relapse again, to go through detox again, because that's where the money is. So the doctors send out your test results, where peeing in a cup could be $3,000, goes to a lab. They bill the insurance company, and then we get the bills from there. So if you follow the money, that's the Florida Shuffle. They entice you with cheap rent, basically to go through detox again, and that's where the money is for the doctors, for the labs, and unfortunately, then the insurance companies get bilked.
It just sounds so tragic, because you're trying to send someone for help, they're getting sucked into it again, and I bet a lot of families don't know about that.
They don't know, and we didn't. I know when Jamie left the 30-day in-treatment place in Florida, which was a wonderful facility, and then he went to a place which was also a wonderful facility called Sober Living. It was $245 a week, of which he got a job. He was paying for 3 of the weeks. I was helping him with 1 week. And when I asked the therapist, and I said, why is it so much money? He said, in Florida, you get what you pay for. Well, that's all I knew, and at the time, who knew? Until unfortunately he got caught up in it. Then we heard about patient brokering, where kids get paid to get kids to come there to those homes, and the Florida Shuffle. We knew nothing about it, and that's why we're spreading the word. And it's not just Florida. Florida's starting to clean it up now, Sheena. It's California, Orange County. There are many places. Be careful where you're sending your kids, and do your due diligence.
Absolutely, it sounds like it for sure. Speaking as far as families and kids and that relationship there, what should families know in terms of prescription drug use to relieve pain, and how the child or another family member could react to that?
Well, first of all, I believe, anything after 48 hours, although the CDC says it's 72 hours, maybe
Okay.
less than that, whether you then go on Tylenol 3 or anything else. Just because a doctor prescribes you something, a Vicodin or Percocet or anything else, doesn't mean it's a great thing. And that's where the kids think, well, the doctor prescribed
Yeah,
it must be
that's true.
okay. Then all of a sudden, in 3 to 5 days, you become addicted.
Wow.
And those who maybe have a mouth surgery or a shoulder surgery for parents, and the doctor prescribes you for what maybe you only needed pills for 2 days, you get 20 in a bottle, which is less than when they used to prescribe 80 or 100.
Oh my goodness.
That's a
wow.
good thing.
Yeah.
So that's starting to come down now because of Michigan laws and federal laws. They are changing in how much a doctor can prescribe. But the problem is the parent may be finished with those pills and leave them in the medicine cabinet. Well, the kid who maybe, we've heard 12, 13, 15, 17 years
wow,
old,
yeah.
goes up to that medicine cabinet, sees a bottle of Vicodin with 8 left over in the medicine cabinet and takes them.
Yeah.
Dispose properly, and there are many centers you can go to
Yes.
now that you can dispose those drugs. Don't leave them lying around the house. The kids can find them, and that's how it starts. And just because your doctor says you need 20 pills, maybe you don't. And hopefully the doctors now are starting to learn maybe you only need 10.
Yeah.
And then dispose of those properly. Don't leave stuff lying around the house. We knew when Jamie was in detox here the first time in Brighton, when he came home, we took everything out of the house. You just have to, because
do.
believe me, parents, addicts are great manipulators. They don't want to be addicts. They are. They'll do whatever they can to get the drugs. And for me, for our family, we believe it also started on Adderall.
Oh, okay.
And when you run out of Adderall, or you're selling the extra Adderall to get the opioids, when you run out of the opioids, that's when the kids can turn to heroin.
Oh,
And unfortunately,
wow.
the
Yeah.
fentanyl that they're trying to clamp down on comes into this country. It's an elephant tranquilizer, a small little speck in a pill of heroin. Jamie did not shoot up. Jamie was addicted to the opioid pills, and his was in heroin form. And unfortunately, the pill he took, when he should have known not to, but was also in a home which led to drugs. He was in a bad environment in Florida. That pill was laced with fentanyl, and it shocked his heart, and he was gone.
Oh no.
You just don't know. And for me, some kids need Adderall. Others are abusing the Adderall, and when they run out of Adderall or are selling it, they're getting the opioids, and then they turn to heroin.
Yeah, and
It's
it's
a
all
vicious
because
cycle.
their brain is just seeking that same feeling
Sure.
again. Yeah,
Sure it is.
sounds
Yeah.
like it, yeah.
And peer pressure too. So
Yeah.
just know the consequences. Parents need to talk about it with their kids, know what can happen, and the kids need to know what happened. And if they need to know Jamie's story, the rest of it, search it online.
Yeah.
It's out there. You'll find it. It's awful. And I just say to kids, don't put your parents in the position we were put in.
Yeah.
And most importantly, don't put yourself in that spot. You just don't know.
Yeah. So in closing, what do you suppose us as a community, what can we do to sort of respond to this epidemic that's still alive and unfortunately thriving?
Well, we have to talk about it. You have to
Yeah.
communicate. And, communication is the big thing in all walks of life, I guess. And parents need to know the signs. If your kid is in the room and he's isolating himself and is tired all the time and looks like he's falling asleep with his head on the table, and know something's wrong. If he's just not walking right, the eyes are droopy, see the signs and don't ignore them, and get him help. And he may not want the help. He's going to resist, because when you're an addict, and to go through a detox is probably, if you've had the worst flu of your life, this is probably 10 times worse than that. And my son told me
wow.
that.
Okay.
And the first time he got clean, he said, hell no, I'm never using again.
Yeah.
I'm never going through that again. Well, he did, because he couldn't help himself. It's kids need the direction every day.
Yeah.
And it's not a day to day, it's day to day, to month, to year, for
Ongoing.
perhaps the rest of your life.
Yeah, it's very powerful. Well,
Yeah.
if people are interested in finding out more about a foundation that you have, where can they go to get some more information there?
JamieDanielsFoundation.org, and we're going to do a lot of good things.
Yes,
So
great things coming.
JAMIE, JamieDanielsFoundation.org, and
Great.
we'll carry on from there. It's just starting, but we're going to do a lot of good things and
Great.
a lot of good fundraisers, and education's the key.
Great. Well, thank you very much
Thank
for
you, Sheena.
being here. It was enlightening for me, and I'm sure it was for viewers as well. We really appreciate it.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching this episode of Parenting on the Go. If you would like to look up more helpful parenting tips, you can visit the West Bloomfield Youth Assistance website at wbyouthassistance.org.